So, to set some guidelines and some rules, we do need sleep. It is important for many physiologic processes. Close to my heart, we need it for a healthy brain. As you know, the brain does shrink when you sleep, and that's when it cleans itself and drains. So, no sleep, no brain drainage. And every study on sleep deprivation shows that it does lead to an increase in psychosis, anxiety, and a whole host of other mental illnesses. Contrary to popular belief, though, you don't need less sleep as you age. You still need sleep. So these are the recommendations, and we're still looking somewhere between 7 and 9 hours. Now that's assuming that you're asleep. As you know, there's different kinds of sleep, so we're going to have to talk about that. The ideal pattern for sleep is what we want to know more about. So deep sleep is what everybody's talking about these days. And the deep sleep is where the magic happens. So if you're not getting deep sleep, you're not making growth hormone effectively, you're not recovering your metabolism. As you know, babies need to sleep a lot because they're growing. Well, we're still growing as adults, we're just not getting taller, although we do get bigger. But your cells need sleep to repair themselves. So if you're using a sleep tracker, you know what I'm talking about. But the idea here is that you can't have all deep sleep. Your body's going to create deep sleep as needed when it has an opportunity. And what I've noticed in looking at people's sleep patterns is that sometimes they get the best deep sleep when they don't have a lot of time to sleep. So back in the day when we could actually travel, you could be up for 36 to 40 hours, and when you get to where you're going, you might have a power nap, and the sleep data will show that most of that was deep sleep. So the brain is capable of finding a way to make sleep happen. So one of the other issues we're seeing is anxiety, and particularly with teenagers. Now, obviously, there's reasons for this beyond lack of sleep, but when you look at the latest information on ADD and ADHD, it's turning out to be more of a sleep-related issue. The less sleep you get, the more drained your body is during the day, the harder your adrenals have to work, the more you crave the wrong kinds of foods, the more likely you are to engage in high-risk behavior, so on and so forth. Selective memory, all that starts to happen. So at the cornerstone of a lot of dysfunction is sleep. If you have a symptom-based practice and people are filling out surveys that are symptom-based, a lot of the symptoms related to the central nervous system and the autonomic nervous system go back to sleep. So like I mentioned, deep sleep is very important for growth hormone secretion. As you know, the main glands involved with sleep are the pituitary and the pineal. And so we've got a lot to talk about there. Homeopathy gives us some wonderful tools to support those tissues. For example, pineal code is a home run for sleep-related issues, particularly people that don't dream. I find that when people are using pineal code, they start to have really wild dreams, and they start to remember their dreams. Thankfully, we can't DVR our dreams, or else we'd all be in trouble, maybe. But dreaming is important, and so it's very paramount to your treatment plans to ask people about your sleep. If you get stuck with a patient and you really don't know where to go, ask them about sleep, because if they're not sleeping and you help them sleep, you just change their world. All right, so let's look at some sleep data. So this is my sleep data for the week of the 2020 election. This was taken on a Garmin Fenix 5. So it's a wrist-worn device. And for the week, 7-day average, I'm averaging about an hour of deep sleep. You can see that here. Averaging about 4 hours and 46 minutes of light sleep, so on and so forth. And I'm getting about 8 hours of sleep. So not bad, considering what was going on, right? We had Halloween, a full moon, a time change, a skewed election. It was crazy. So that's one way to measure sleep. Another way is using a ring, like an Oura ring. So here is the sleep data from the Oura ring. In this case, I sampled it on November 1st, which is the day that we all got an extra hour to sleep. So I thought that would be a good sample. And the Oura ring says, hey, I'm going to give you 83 points for your sleep. It says I slept 8.5 hours. I was 91% efficient at my sleep. Got almost 2 hours of deep sleep. What you'll find is stress can throw off your deep sleep. So one of the keys to helping people sleep better is to look at how they handle stress. Well, one of the nice things about the Oura ring is it does that for us. Beyond heart rate, it also does heart rate variability. So when you're looking at people's sleep, you can look at when they're waking up. And you know that the body has a clock. So if I'm waking up sometime between 12 and 1, like I am here, chances are I may have had an extra glass of wine because it was Saturday night and it was Halloween. But you'll notice that the deep sleep recovered well. What you'll see in people who wake up a lot at night is when their bodies are shifting the time clock for the organs, they'll wake up at the shift. So from 1 to 3, we've got liver. 3 to 5, we've got lung. 5 to 7, we've got large intestine. If you see on their sleep data that they're waking up at every 2 hours, that means bioenergetically they're not shifting into the next organ cycle efficiently. A lot of that has to do with lymphatic congestion and cellular toxicity. So if they're waking up every 2 hours, definitely address the homotoxicology of the situation. Pick your lymph, maybe use drainage milieu, heart song milieu, something to help that transition through the night. There's some other ideas I'm going to talk about in a minute regarding that, but I want you to also pay attention to their heart rate. So you can see down here that my lowest heart rate of the night was about 7 a.m. If you see high heart rates early in the evening, that usually means the liver and the gallbladder are working extra hard, which would make sense because the liver is drawing blood to it and the heart has to work harder to clean the liver. But like I said, this was Halloween night, so you know we were having a little bit of fun. So this is good data. We can see that at about 2 a.m. the heart rate finally dropped and it stabilized. If you're looking at a sample where you see high heart rate and low heart rate all over the place, that's neurologic chaos. But most of the time you're going to see elevated heart rates early and then they will settle down later in the wee hours of the morning. Something else to consider too is the temperature of the room. If the room is too warm, you'll see high heart rates. And one thing the Oura ring does for us is measure temperature. So there's a lot of factors here, and there's a lot of good online research to support all this. So let's talk about the 3 biggest things for sleep hygiene. Number 1, get rid of the light. You can't have light if you're trying to sleep. Light burns off the melatonin that your pineal's trying to make. So if you don't have enough melatonin to initiate sleep, you're not going to stay asleep. So you need darkening shades. You might even want to cover your eyes. Get off the devices about an hour before bed. No TVs in the bedroom. Don't read on your phone or tablet. Try to create a dark, healthy environment. Of all the sleep studies, we do know some consistent facts. The big one being that as land-dwelling mammals, we are engineered to have a sleep-awake cycle that mimics sunrise-sunset. And the most recent study I saw showed that people who handle stress the best typically get early morning sunshine. So if you have the opportunity to stick your mug in the sunshine every morning and at least get some sunshine in the eyes at sunrise, then you have a better chance of getting better sleep that day, and you tend to manage cortisol more efficiently. And if you know anything about cortisol, you know it typically spikes in the morning, so that's an effective habit. I know Crystal posts amazing photos of sunrise every day from the coast in Santa Barbara. So if you can't get out to the sun, check out the Instagram feed and you can see the sunrise in Santa Barbara. Or do what I did, go to Santa Barbara, shoot a really good sunrise video, and then keep that at your disposal. For those of us that live way north and we don't get enough sunshine, go ahead and use a daylight lamp in the morning to wake you up. In the evening, get rid of the light. Okay, you need quiet, but some people like background noise. There are studies where noise generators at certain frequencies can help people sleep better. I know with travel, I find it difficult to be in an extremely quiet hotel room, but you do get used to it. And if you've ever gone exploring off the grid or camping in the middle of nowhere, and it's really quiet, you find that your ears do take some time to adjust. So try to find whatever sound environment works for you. I know a lot of people that live in the city, when they go to the country, they have a hard time sleeping because it's too quiet. So you can get sound generator apps on your phone. You can buy little sound devices to run in your room. Sometimes you can just run an exhaust fan if there's a bathroom nearby. Things to keep in mind. Temperature is the big one. Now this has been heavily studied in the last 12 months. So the cooler room creates a better sleep environment. And if it's damp, you're not going to sleep very well. So cool and dry. Ideal temperatures are showing 62 to 65 degrees. So try to set your room for that if possible. If not, they actually make cooling blankets so you can cool your room. I've been to Africa, I've been to the tropics. I guess the more you can adapt, the better you can sleep. So keep that in mind, that each one of these environmental features technically requires adaptation. So if you're not very good at adapting to change, you might want to focus there for stress. And that's where you bring in the adaptogens. So a lot of people that don't sleep well do really well on adaptogens, and ashwagandha being the primary adaptogen. So when you look at research for sleep and ashwagandha, it shows take ashwagandha in the evening, helps the beta brain waves do their thing, and you can create a better sleep cycle. And remember, it takes energy to sleep. So sometimes you have to do a few months of adrenal support in order to get to sleep. But lots to talk about on that front. Some other things we want to look at is the sleep-immune connection. So here's an interesting article that Dr. Cass put me on to, talking about how, hey, you know what? Maybe we should get rest and plenty of fluids to help the immune system. Duh. But I also noticed that way down in the corner here's a fun article. Stress and fear, clinical implications for providers and patients in the time of COVID-19, published by the Mayo Clinic. I want to go there and check that article out. It is a fascinating read, although it's not about sleep. It's just about stressed out healthcare providers. So this landmark study, right, the American Physiological Society, landmark study finally shows why sleep is so important for the immune system. It basically boils down to, if you don't have good sleep, you don't recover. If you don't recover, you don't restore yourselves. Your microbiome gets angry. You lose some of your good guys, and then your response to an invasion becomes impaired. So pretty simple stuff. Disturbed sleep is also an issue with the immune system, and that's why if you've got a young baby at home or a puppy or something that's keeping you up all the time, it's really important to find a way to get some deep sleep at some point during the day. So nothing new here. They just now know all the physiologic mechanisms behind all of it. And wouldn't you know it, that lack of sleep essentially creates a pro-inflammatory state and inflammatory activation. So unless you've been under a rock lately, turmeric is one of those plants that's really good for sleep modulation vis-a-vis stress response. The curcuminoids in turmeric have been shown to be mood regulating. So that's a good one to keep on board. I mean, at this point, who's not using turmeric? Right? The body needs it, and it's very important for helping modulate this immune response from an inflammatory point of view. But the other one is vitamin D. Okay, as you know, vitamin D hits the source of inflammation at NF-kappa B. So that's why it's important to see the sun, and if you can't see the sun, use your Sol-Ray D regularly at correct dosages. So you got to get good sleep. The study also talks about the microbiome piece of sleep and how that falls apart. And for anybody that's ever been up for 2 or 3 days straight, you know your gut suffers pretty bad. All right, particularly if you're traveling. So a lot of travel-related issues with the gut often go back to the interrupted sleep. And everybody's got their own tricks for doing that. Maybe one day we'll talk about how to handle travel-induced issues. Oh wait, we're going to. Coming soon on the briefing room, I've got a whole series called the Travelers Series, and I think we'll give some time to handling jet lag. So at this point, you could say, well, Doc, what about melatonin? Yeah, well, what about it? You make it, right? I still cringe when people say, oh, don't take melatonin, you'll get addicted. You don't get addicted to it. In fact, now we need more melatonin than ever, and it's not just because we need it to sleep. Melatonin is neuroprotective. It protects brain cells from damage. You burn up your melatonin by being on screens all the time. Electromagnetic fields basically eliminate melatonin's efficiency. And if you've got a calcified pineal gland, or like I say, you've got a cataract on your third eye, you need to decalcify or descale that pineal gland using things like pineal code, chelation therapy. You can use things like laminaria and melatonin, and more importantly, stop putting things in your body that hurt your pineal gland. So get rid of fluoride. Make sure you've got enough iodine on board. Stop eating poorly. No brainer. Get some sleep. Check those head injuries out. They cause issues. Check the dental field. Check for cranial faults. All of those lead to sleep disturbances and pineal dysfunction. But I thought this was pretty cool when you look at the melatonin clock, because one of the questions I ask people is, do you ever have to wake up in the middle of the night to have a bowel movement? Because if they are, they're not sleeping. Because you'll notice about 10:30, melatonin says, hey, bowels, you're done for the day. But if you're waking up to have a bowel movement, that's a sign that something's wrong with the nervous system. So there's a good clinical pearl for you. And you can follow this chart around and see how it works. But there's a direct relationship with cortisol and melatonin. So if you're testing for cortisol, also test for melatonin. We know a lot about melatonin. We know how it works. Any student right now or anybody that's stuck working from home on a computer all day, I have them taking melatonin all day, a few sprays every couple hours, and then before they go to bed for sure. But yeah, it's a losing battle trying to keep melatonin going. It's not just for sleep. It protects a whole lot of things. Remember, melatonin is actually a hormone. So important. Thank goodness we have the liposomal form from Physica. People say, oh, I've got melatonin. I said, well, if it's not in liposomal form, you're going to be wasting your money. And they catch on pretty quick. So it does work. Dosage-wise, I've had people 30, 40, 50 milligrams of melatonin. Do the math, read the label, understand how to dose these sprays, because sometimes the dosage does change. And on average, I would recommend for kids under 12, 4 to 12 milligrams of melatonin for the day. And if you're having a lot of screen time, you may increase that. With closed head injuries, sometimes we'll start with 20. It really just depends. But don't let misinformation and fear guide your decisions regarding melatonin. Another fun thing that actually I was put onto this through a friend of mine, Don Lawson. We were talking about the brain and sleep. And it's something called your chronotype. And so you can check this guy out. You can go to this link down here, the Power of When quiz, and figure out your chronotype. This isn't your genotype or anything like that. What this says, after you fill out the survey, it says, hey, what kind of animal do you sleep like? Are you a dolphin? Are you a wolf? Are you a bear or a lion? So hopefully after you watch this, go ahead and fill it out. Check out Dan's work on sleep. And he's got a lot of good online resources for you to learn more about sleep. But the patients love this because it helps them be more involved in their sleep. So check out which chronotype are you, and you might even want to do a little digital marketing with this to talk to people about their sleep. It's been very successful. So, what do we want to do next? Let's see. Okay, a couple things about sleep. So we've talked about melatonin, and I think you guys understand melatonin pretty well. But homeopathically, sometimes people can't sleep because they can't sleep. They don't know how to enhance their calm. Enhance your calm, John Spartan. A little Demolition Man reference for you Stallone fans. So they get in their own way. Self-sabotage, can't sleep. So relax milieu works really well for people that can't enhance their calm. Don't tell me to calm down. I'm not. Oh, I feel better. Hemp oil works really well for that. CBD is useful in many cases. So is ashwagandha. The other one I use for that is valerian. A valerian is not natural Valium. Don't confuse that. Valerian enhances your calm neurologically. Now, if you're the kind of person that twitches all the time when you sleep, valerian's not the answer. Okay, I would look at something like kava or GABA for that. But neurologically, if you're twitching a lot, consider valerian. Now, one of the tricks I've learned in using valerian root is a lot of people need to be taught how to sleep. They never learned how to sleep in the first place. So you may start off dosing valerian morning and night. And once they start establishing a healthy sleep pattern, you can just dose it in the evening. Don't take valerian situationally. Valerian is plant medicine designed to be used to create a solution. Once you've created the solution, you can probably discontinue it. So that's my take on valerian. It usually pairs really well with passion flower. So you can get your hands on a nice formula like that. That works out well. Remember I said earlier that it takes energy to sleep. So if your adrenals are completely gassed, you're not going to have the energy to sleep. You might have to dose people on something like Adrenal Life Force or Adrenal LF. You might have to do 2 to 3 weeks where you're dosing 6 to 12 a day to prime that pump and get them the energy to sleep. And most of you know this, but I'll refresh you anyways. If you can't fall asleep because you can't shut your head off, that usually means the adrenals are running on hyperdrive. Your cortisol needs to be brought down, and that's where ashwagandha helps. But if you fall asleep and you can't stay asleep, that's usually a blood sugar issue. And what's happening is your blood sugar is dropping too much, creating a hypoglycemia state while you sleep. Your brain says, I don't like this, and it floods the system with cortisol. And you never want to wake up the adrenals too early. So one of the tools you can use for this, if you want to use a simple Dutch test, pee on a piece of paper, do it 5 times, send it in, pretty color glossy photocopies, and you can go over how that cortisol pattern is working for the patient. But I find that if somebody's waking up, typically between 1 and 3, that's liver, and chances are they have a sugar handling problem. So in that case, have them have a small snack before bed, but not carbohydrates. Okay? A lot of athletes who can't sleep, they're training their guts out all day, and they just want to get good sleep. I have them take about 20 to 25 grams of protein before bed, and that usually helps them sleep the night through. So a lot of these people are burned out, and they need more adaptogenic support. Sometimes things like gynostemma can be dosed throughout the day to create sleep. But if you're running into trouble and you're using pharmaceuticals to sleep, that's no way to go. We've all heard the horror stories about Ambien. Most recently, we had a priest urinate on a passenger that he was sitting next to on a flight from LAX to Detroit. I don't know why Detroit's always in the news. But he blamed it on Ambien. He took a bunch of Ambien on the red eye, passed out, and apparently started sleepwalking, and he thought that she was a urinal. So if you ever have somebody decide to use you as a urinal on an airplane, it's probably the Ambien. Maybe because they're not wearing a mask. Who knows? I would definitely react to that and then give that person some melatonin. The other thing I've noticed in these cycles with blood sugar related issues as it pertains to waking up is serotonin. So if you're constantly waking up 1 to 3, you've tried the dietary stuff, nothing seems to work, consider using 5-HTP on a regular basis. Take that with your evening meal, and let's prime the pump on serotonin. Now there's a lot more research coming down on serotonin and some of the phytocannabinoids. And one of those phytocannabinoids is CBDA, which we're going to call the Canadian phytocannabinoid for now because it's easy to remember A. But definitely look up CBD-A and its impact on serotonin and opioid receptors. A lot of good stuff there. But that's my take on sleep. And if you have ever had an amazing night's sleep, you'll remember it. Because when you don't get a good night's sleep, you remember what sleep feels like and you miss it. So you can't pay people to work out for you, and you can't hire somebody to sleep for you. It's pretty much up to you.